Hello everybody, I'm Kurt. Welcome back to another video of Project Vast. Lachlan's off doing some Magnus stuff. He's mucking around at records today. Who knows what he's doing. But today we're going to be working on some brake calipers. I have some Brembo brake calipers here that need to be pulled apart. We're going to pull the brake pads out, clean them up with a wire wheel, and give them a fresh coat of paint ready to be put back on the car. The car that you don't probably know about yet, or maybe I haven't put a video up. I don't know at this point. I haven't decided. For those of you not familiar with Brembo brakes too much, these came on a bunch of different cars, come from Evos, Skylines, heaps of cars that came out with Brembos. A lot of the GTIRs, the Golfs and that come out with Brembos sometimes now. What was that? Beamers come out with Brembos. All sorts of cars come out with Brembos. They're a very good brake company. And yeah, we're going to start by pulling this one apart, and then we're going to pull all the other ones apart as well. I've already pulled one apart. We've got some bolts and bits and pieces and stuff here. So yeah, we're going to start by pulling some of the bolts out that hold it in. We're going to pull out, I don't know if you can see them real well in here, but there's a couple of pins in them, and these pins come out and this pin at the top comes off. It looks more like that. And then the pins come out of the brake caliper. They look like that, and they lets us pull the brake pads out, which we're going to turf because they're all pretty old and stuffed. So yeah, we're going to get into that. Right, so we just pulled all the pins and everything out. It's pretty easy to do. It's just pull two clip pins that come out of these things. Two of these little rod things, I think I said this before, two of these rods slide out, and you can pull this, it's like, I don't even know what they call, a little spring clip type thing. It holds pressure on it. They just slide out, and I've compressed the pistons back inside of them, and now we're going to go find a wire wheel on a drill, and we're going to take all the paint and everything off them and clean them up. Yes, I'm gonna go get some padded off. Hey guys, back again. We ran into some errands yesterday that we had to run and do real quick, so we're back into the brake calipers then. So we're just going to continue setting up these things, pulling them apart and getting them all ready for paint and stuff. So let's get back into it. Okay, so as you can see, we've got these all scratched up and sanded, ready to be painted now. We've done all 4 of them finally. It's taken us a while because I'm a little bit slack, but we finally got them all sanded down. The basic idea is that you want to sand these until there's not really any sort of a glossy part. So if you look on the very front of these things, it's probably not really noticeable as such, but it's still a little bit shiny from all the old paint. We're gonna, you sort of want to scratch that up so it looks really dull like the rest of this stuff. And yeah, so that's what you're looking for when you sand these out. The next step from here, after you've got them all hung up, is you want to use some good old wax and grease remover on a clean rag, like the cleanest rag you can get. These are way too filthy for it. Even a brand new rag if you can get them. But yeah, use some of this wax and grease remover on a clean rag. Hang these up on a bit of wire ready to be painted, and give these a good wipe over. Once you've wiped with this wax and grease remover, I cannot stress this enough, do not touch this with your hands. The oil and stuff from your fingers, if it gets in this, will contaminate the paint, and you will get bubbles, reactions to it. It will look bad, and for all the sanding and time and effort you've already put in this, you really don't want that. Otherwise you've got to go and sand this and pretty much start again. I don't know if you need a vacuum cleaner. People vacuum, but it's a new day and it's not nearly as windy today, so we're gonna paint some calipers. So we're gonna make a start by going through with some wax and grease remover, giving it all a good wipe down, and then taping everything up, which I'll show you, and then we'll do some paint, and then we'll vacuum. Right, now that you've done wax grease remover the first time, your next step is to tape everything up. We've already sort of done one. You want everything nice and clean before you do this, so the tape sort of sticks to everything properly. You mainly want to cover the pistons inside the brake caliper and the bleed nipples. Anything that paint shouldn't be, you should probably tape up. So we're going to do that now, and then we're going to go through and wax and grease remover again just to make sure it's clean, because we've been touching with our hands. Pretty much every time you do something, make sure to go and wash your hands and keep them really dry, otherwise you'll contaminate paint. So this is one coat of undercoat. It's a bit patchy. This is still going to be sanded back and more coats applied, but we're getting somewhat of the result we want. It's very glossy, very wet still. Can't really see it from this angle, but pretty happy with it so far. Alright, so it's been a few days. We've put a few extra coats on these calipers. They've come up really nicely. The primer filler, it's called a primer, but it's technically a primer filler. What it does is it works like a sponge, so when it hits the brake calipers, they tend to expand a little bit, if that makes sense. The paint expands a little bit, fills up all the low spots and stuff like that. So it's got a bit of a rough texture at the moment, so we're going to pull these off. We're going to hang our front calipers. These are the rears. We're going to take the rears off, hang our fronts, and get them all prepped and get some paint on the front ones. And then while the paint's drying on those, we're going to give these a good wet sand with probably about 800 grit sandpaper, wet of course, and then yeah, we should be throwing some colour on hopefully today, I hope. Yeah, so keep watching. so we've got one coat of undercoat on them. We're probably going to have to go buy some more paint. We'll see how we go. Hopefully we can get enough coats out of it. It's on very lightly at the moment because you don't want to have it too wet, otherwise it'll run. I'm pretty sure I've already explained all this anyway. But yeah, so we're going to let this dry. We're going to go out and take our rear calipers into the shed and wet sand them down with some high grade sandpaper, something like 800. I think I've got some. And when we get through some of that, we'll come back and we'll do a few more coats. To the shed. Alright, so while we're gone, we've got a tin of fuel. This is just plain old unleaded 91 cheap stuff. We're going to fill up some of these cups with it and put all these nuts, bolts and shims and washers and clips and pins and everything into the cups and let them soak in there for a few days to get all the crap and schmutz off them. We're going to have our calipers looking better than brand new, so we want all the hardware with it to look good as well. So yeah, we're going to set this up and we're going to throw some nut and bolts into here. That's not very exciting, just filling these up with fuel, put those bolts into these and let them sit somewhere, so I'll show you that afterwards. Okay, so believe it or not, these are actually filled with petrol. They're that filled that it's sort of changed the colour of the water already. Let's see if I can take this out of here for a sec. Yeah, so you can already see that's just, this has got the large shims in it and some of the locating pins for the brake pads. But that is, oh, we're going out of focus a bit. That's a bit better, kind of. Yeah, so that one's gotten pretty filthy pretty quick, but this is what the rest of them that aren't so filthy look like. They're still pretty black compared to what the petrol look like, but yeah, that's what they are. We couldn't fit our big spring clamps in them, so they just sort of sit in the top right now. We'll have to clean them by hand later. But yeah, so these are going to sit in here and soak for a few days, get them all nice and clean, and then we'll decide what to do with them from there. Alright, so we're about to wet sand these rear calipers. It's very simple to do. It's exactly like normal sanding. The only difference is we're trying to get a better finish on the calipers, so we're using a high grit sandpaper. This is 800. It's probably back to front. Yeah, so this is 800 grit sandpaper. It's very, very fine. You can get finer, but this is good for this application. Yeah, so we're using a high grit sandpaper and we're dipping it in, keeping it wet all the time with the bucket of water and giving the whole thing a good rub over. Ready for some colour next. And there we have it, wet sanded. I don't know if you'd see much in that video. If the video was for it, I'll probably just skip it and just go to this part. But yeah, rear calipers are wet sanded. They're ready to hang back. They're just sitting in the sun at the moment drying. We're gonna hang them up for some paint soon. We're gonna put a couple more layers on the front one, which I'll probably just skip as well. You've already seen how to do that on the rears, and you've already seen me do a layer on the front. So I'll just keep doing layers on the front till we're happy. And yeah, so while we wait, I might start another project, which you guys probably don't know about. Maybe you'll see it in this video, maybe at the end of the next one. Who knows? But yeah, stay tuned. Ding.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is a wrap. This is probably going to end up being a 2-part video because it ended up going for really, really long. So we're going to make this 2-part video, and yeah, thanks for watching. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button, all that stuff if you like it. And we will see you in part 2 of the Brembo brake caliper rebuild.